Hello, everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. I'm your host, retired NYPD Sergeant Bill Cannon, a 27-year veteran of NYPD. Guys, if you notice, I have the white Police Off the Cuff banner behind me. That usually, if you've been with the show for a while, you know that means I'm in Florida. And I left Thursday early afternoon, 12:30, and I drove till 10 o'clock at night that day. And then I stayed over at a Marriott hotel, and they had one room left because I didn't plan where I was going to stop. So I got that room, and it was a suite, and the guy started at a certain price, and I kept mentioning different things, and I got him down. You know, it's my New York bargaining, and I got him down to a price that I was happy with. I was mentioning everything. I won a spelling bee in 6th grade. No, that's a joke. I said, AAA. Okay, we'll take you down. What was the other thing? Oh, senior citizen. Next thing. Oh, I'm a 9/11 first responder. I showed him my ID card. All of a sudden, he was like, okay, I'll give you the government rate. And I got it for an XYZ, but I got it down $40. So I was happy. And all I did was sleep overnight. I left at 8:30 in the morning, and I got here last night at 7:30. But I'm too old for driving, that type of driving over 2 days. And it was tough, and I'm still feeling it today, but I had to get on the air to address this case. Anyway, I also want to mention one other thing. My buddy Duty Ron announced on his show, Crime Time with Duty Ron, that he has cancer. And I just want everyone that's a part of this channel and knows that we're friends and say a prayer for Duty Ron and for his family. It's probably related to his service at 9/11. We all have that ticking time bomb inside us, all of us that responded to that. So I want you guys all to say a prayer for Duty Ron and hope that he beats this for him and his family. We would all miss Duty Ron. And again, I want to just mention that. And we all believe in the power of prayer. So say a prayer for Duty Ron. This case, unbelievable, right? That, I don't think any of us expected anything but this. But when a case goes to a jury, you just never, ever know. You never know what's going to happen. And I thought some of the presentation put forth by the defense was pretty damn good, Jorge Torres, the way they're referring to him, you could say Jorge or George Torres. They had a bombastic relationship at best. They had a classic domestic violence relationship, a classic alcoholic domestic violence relationship. And, it wasn't good. So I thought that the jury might buy the battered woman and the self-defense thing, but not buy it totally to where they would have found her innocent, but buy it to the point where they would downgrade it to manslaughter first degree, which is what she was offered, if you remember. She was offered manslaughter first degree before going to trial, and she insisted, no, I'm taking this to trial. Very risky. She rolled the dice, and she lost. Snake eyes, as they say. So she rolled it and she lost. And now I think she's going to face 22 and a half to life for murder second degree. That's the sentence in Florida. Anyway, folks, we're going to go over this today, and we're going to give you our expert commentary from an NYPD sergeant's point of view, because I have a surprise guest, even though it's not a surprise, because I said plural sergeants. Anyway, folks, hang on to your hats, hang on to your seats, hang on to your loved ones, hang on to your opinions, because you're about to enter true crime from a police perspective. You're about to enter the off-the-cuff zone, the police off-the-cuff zone.
There has to be some common sense.
They were the ones who called 911 to get him help, and now they're calling for change.
Folks, before we go on, a word from our sponsor. Basketball fans, it's that time of year again. The NBA is back from opening tip-off to buzzer beaters. BetOnline has you covered with the best odds, biggest promotions, and live in-game betting on all your favorite, live in-game betting on all your favorite teams. This season, every game matters. BetOnline has every stat, matchup breakdown, and live odds to bet on during the game. And it's not just the NBA. BetOnline has odds on everything from football, Major League Baseball playoffs, National Hockey League, to political props. Head to the website today to get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. BetOnline, the game starts here. So what better person to have with me today to give you a breakdown on this case? And I know all the talking heads are out there. Everyone beat me to it because yesterday I was driving to Florida. I was on 95 South. So today we're a little bit late, but this is coming from a police perspective, from our perspective. And joining me today is retired NYPD Sergeant, professor at Albertus Magnus College in Connecticut, attorney. Welcome to the show, Professor Michael Geary. Mike, welcome.
Hey, Bill, how are you? Good afternoon. This is a great case to talk about today. Thank you for
Mike,
having me
that was
on.
probably the greatest introduction I've ever given you before. I don't know.
I appreciate it.
For a laid back guy, I gave you that little hoopla, that little. I almost said chutzpah. that chutzpah. That's a Yiddish word, coming out of the mouth of an Irishman.
That's it.
Anyway, Mike, were you surprised at this verdict?
Billy, no. I figured probably there was a 99% chance that this would happen. There's always the outside chance something could happen with the jury. You never know where they're going to go. But we kind of thought this. Yeah, the evidence was very emotional and pretty darn conclusive as to state of mind. Okay, the mens rea, the actions, the actus reus. We kind of thought this. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I did too, Mike, to tell you the truth. But you never know what a jury's going to do. You absolutely never know that they could have all the evidence in the world and they could choose to ignore it. And, there was some powerful evidence brought forth by the defense. No, look, they were like, remember that cartoon, the Lockhorns? It was actually a little.
Oh, yes.
That's what they reminded me of. Like they were a couple that was dysfunctional. Mm-hmm. They were both alcoholics. And, Sarah Boone claimed that she loved this man. But they had a very, I'll use the word not even lightly, bombastic relationship that if that's love, what's hate,
Yeah. And as I know, and as many other law enforcement officers know, you go to domestic disturbances, there's a fine line between love and hate when it comes to married couples that are fighting. And quite often it's not even a solid line. It's a dash, and they go back and forth between love and hate within a couple of minutes of you being there. They go back and forth constantly, and they really don't know what they want. You ask them you want to make an arrest? You want to make a report? Yes, no, maybe, I don't know, arrest them. No, I don't mean arrest them right now, but I want you to threaten them. It's these kind of cases are a nightmare. And I'm sure for the local police at Winter Park, where she was, I'm sure this was like, they were known to the police that this couple is very unstable and they're probably chronically unhappy and calling 911. And that's what you got to deal with. And it's sad, but they couldn't figure out a way to get along in a constructive way. And look how it all ends.
Crazy. From the chat, I'm very interested in hearing the opinions of people in the chat today. Cara Vintage from the chat, she thought she could manipulate the jury like she has everyone else. They say her true colors. They saw her true colors. She was her own enemy. She's a narcissist and a psychopath. Now she thinks she can win on appeal. Something? The judge bent over backwards to be fair to the defense. More than fair. I think he went overboard, realizing, look, she went through eight attorneys over 4 years and change, almost 5 years. This attorney that represented her, who I thought did an admirable job. He was the ninth attorney. So this judge knows that this could be problematic. So he bent over backwards and allowed things that, and so did the prosecution. I didn't see the prosecution objecting at things that I felt, Mike, and I'm not an attorney. I felt they should have been, well, we object to that. And they didn't object very often, Mike.
Yeah, I think she got more than a fair trial. I thought the judge was very, very forgiving in terms of, how he handled the case, allowing her to produce evidence of to present the evidence of a battered spouse syndrome based on one objective indication of wrongdoing on his part. He could have easily said no, and that the case would have went on. But I think he realized that it would be an appealable issue later, and he wanted to give her that option to present that because, in all fairness, she should be able to. So that allowed her to bring in other witnesses. So she got her fair day in court. She got to speak for herself. She got other people to speak for her. And so it was very fair. And I thought the prosecution, they weren't acting like tigers, jumping all over the defense attorney when he was asking questions. And I thought that, and he could definitely have been much more combative. So she got a very, very fair trial. And really, if she thinks she's going to get off on appeal or get a second trial later on, I think that's pretty far-fetched. I don't see that happening at all.
Mike, how about this? She was offered manslaughter first degree. She turned it down. I have no doubt that her defense attorneys will probably say, no, take it. Take this. This is the best you're going to do. Take this. Could she not file an appeal saying I had improper representation? They should have convinced me not to take it and they didn't. Could she say that?
Billy, she could always try to say that I did not get competent counsel, but I think people in her situation and with her personality, and I think the viewer who mentioned that she's a narcissist was absolutely right on. She has that personality. No one can convince her that she's wrong. And, as a defense attorney, the defense attorney's job is to zealously advocate for their client in all matters relating to the case. And the defense attorney's job in doing that, in discharging that duty, is to tell the client what they need to hear, not what the client wants to hear. And that makes defendants very upset when they don't get their wishes. And so in this case, he absolutely, told her, you got to take this case. You're not going to get any better. They're giving you the rock bottom manslaughter to sentence if you take this case right now. If you don't, in 72 hours, we're going to be starting the trial and you're looking at murder. Don't do it. Take the plea. And, she could always claim later on that he could have convinced her. And I'm sure he tried every possible way to convince her to take that because that plea was a gift. I was surprised at that plea bargain offer. So she could claim that in the future, but that's not going anywhere. She might appeal that or say something, but she's going to be in prison while she's doing it. She's going to be in prison no matter what.
Mike, I thought it was lunacy that she didn't take that plea. That plea was a gift sent from heaven, and she chose not to take it. Kami from the chat. Hello, everyone. 21 months. I love this show. She's a member for 21 months. Kami, thank you, and thank you for your generosity, and thank you for being a YouTube channel member. I want to show the closing argument from the prosecution.
This is a box. This is the box where Jorge Torres was killed. It's a small box, 28 by 20 by 8 7/8 inches. Jorge Torres was zipped up in this box. Jorge Torres took his last panicked breaths in this box. The medical examiner explained to us that with each breath George Torres took in, there was less oxygen in this box. George Torres was murdered in this box. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of myself, my trial partner, we thank you for your time and attention in this most important of trials. We now have the law from the judge in this case. This is what our duty is to follow.
Pretty powerful.
Oh yeah.
Seeing that, well, the suitcase that he described as a box. I don't know. Many of us, including me, have claustrophobia. I cannot stand to be in a confined space. I can't even imagine. I would never get in something like that. And if someone tried to put me in something like that, I would fight to the death, But powerful. The jury's sitting there and he's describing this box. And to me, and we ad nauseum have said, I love that term, ad nauseum, have said that the most powerful piece of evidence was the video of him, Sarah, I can't breathe, Sarah. And, that will show a little bit more of that later, but that was painful to watch. That was so painful to watch. And, I want to read some of also from the chat, because I really respect all you former DV victims that you share your stories. Barbara RN 54, I survived DV for 12 years. I found the verdict proper. If she was fearful, she could have called the police as she had done frequently before. He was at her mercy. Doubtful he threatened her. Barbara, thank you, and thank you for your testimonial there. Dragonfly lady from the chat, the defense lawyer after the verdict stated that SB had at least 3 areas that were most likely appealable. I thought that's ridiculous. Dragonfly lady, I agree with you. I mean, every defense attorney has to say that, I would think. But these defense attorneys probably to their friends and family would tell them on the QT what a difficult client Sarah Boone was to represent, although that could maybe violate lawyer-client privilege, but the case is over, so I think they can speak about that. But she was a difficult client at best, because I would guarantee you the defense attorney tried to convince her to take the plea, and she did not. Mike.
Yeah, Billy, the defense attorney always, no matter what, always has to present the best case they can for their client, even after the person's guilty, and talk about an appeal. And having 3 areas of appeal, he's talking about 3 objections that he may have made during the trial that didn't go the way he wanted, that were rejected by the judge. Each and every one of those, objections could be form the basis of an appeal. There's like a 99% chance that none of those appeals are going to be are going to win, are going to be successful. And at the most, if by some chance he won on some issue, all she would get is a retrial, and so she's not going to be set free anytime soon. Nobody has to worry about that. But this is what defense attorneys do. This is their job. They have that duty to speak that way about their client. They have to, what's the proper term? I guess, put their client's best interests first.
They have to be an advocate.
Yeah, they have to advocate.
A cop came up with a legal word, and the lawyer lawyer couldn't think of it.
I ran out of words for a second there, but that zealously advocate for their client, and that's what he has to do. So I'm not surprised the prosecutions can sit back and wait for the notice of appeal to come, and who knows? But no matter what, she's going to be in prison for quite a long period of time.
You know, Mike, when I was a young cop, when I came on the job and I worked in anti-crime and stuff, whenever I would take a case to trial, I did not look upon the defense attorneys as friendly. I looked at them as my adversary.
Yeah.
And I almost didn't even want to say hello to them. And they didn't like that. Like, you'd be on the stand, they'd be, "Good morning, officer." And I would just like look at them like, and they didn't like that at all. But let's get it on. That was my whole point of view. You're trying to get the guy off that I arrested. You're trying to use every skill you have in your lawyer bag of tricks to get this guy off. And I'm trying to use everything in my cop bag of tricks within the parameters of the law and within integrity and honesty in my testimony to put this guy in prison because I think he's guilty. So I didn't there is you don't want to call it a game because it certainly is no game. It's a very, very serious game, but I now, being removed from this, and even later on in my police career when I was a sergeant in the detective bureau, I more understood what it was about than, the prosecution versus the defense. And it is, it's a difficult thing. But again, we have the greatest criminal justice system in the world. It's not without faults. It has plenty of faults, plenty of problems, but just think, we have the greatest system in the entire world, the fairest system in the entire world. It is an adversarial system. The prosecution has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that this person is guilty. And the defense, their job is to create doubt. So therein lies the game of the prosecution versus the defense. And I know you must be salivating to talk about this.
No, it's a game, like it's a chess match, and it's a chess match for the biggest prize there is: somebody's life, somebody's future, decades perhaps in prison. And the reason why they're having this chess match in court in front of a jury and a judge is because someone's life has been taken, or in a case of a robbery or an arson or a rape or a kidnapping, you're playing for all the marbles, and this is serious, serious stuff. And the defense attorney, he's a seasoned pro. I thought he did a good job. He was handed this case only a couple of months ago, and he had to run with it and do the best he could. I thought he did an excellent job. She was well represented. I thought the prosecutor did an excellent job too. At the end, when he was talking about he was referring to the suitcase as a box. I thought he did a good job because you see pointing to that on the floor. I know everybody in that jury looked at that and said, a guy died inside that little suitcase. And that really was probably floored them. And so therefore, he appealed to them the way a prosecutor could. She got an excellent trial. She got an excellent defense attorney, excellent prosecutor, excellent judge. And yeah, our system may be slow, but let's remember, she made it slow. And, we had COVID, of course, in there too, but she made it slow with all of her machinations. This trial could have taken place 2 years ago, but she made it slow. And this is part of maybe why people can criticize our criminal justice system, because maybe it is slow, but it's slow and steady. And we want it to be done. All the trials, we want it to take place in a setting of calm and in retrospect, so people could present their case the best they can. Remember, she goes into that trial with the presumption of innocence, and the burden is always on the prosecutor. And so therefore, the defense has some things going for it, because the entire load of defense, the entire load of evidence, the entire requirement, the responsibility for presenting evidence is on the prosecutor. And so she didn't have to present anything. So that's how trials go. And she decided to, with her defense, she got the ability to do it. The judge ruled in her favor. And so she cannot complain that she did not get a full and fair trial.
Absolutely. From the chat, I really want to share a lot of the chat today, because I really respect all your opinions. Most of you have followed this case right from the beginning. Northwest, Rachel Wright, 90% of the case was her words and videos she took. Northwest, you're 100% correct.
Yeah.
H. Cook, conjecture. Northwest, Danny Mitchell, yes. Maui Swift, she was the only one in the room who thought she was the victim.
Yeah.
Maui, I think you're right, but then my father-in-law watches every one of these shows, and he always calls me afterwards and gives his opinion. And he felt that I was too pro-prosecution, and I didn't mention enough how she was victimized, but this was and I explained to my father-in-law, I've responded to these type of cases during my police career. And the job of an NYPD sergeant when he responds to these is to try to determine who is the primary aggressor. In this case, from what I understood, there was a couple times they were both arrested. So the police couldn't determine so they were both abusive to each other. So very difficult situation for law enforcement. Route Irish. I was so angry when Owens claimed mistrial because Jorge's mom had a reaction to the suitcase video. Yeah, that's absolutely ridiculous that they were going to try to say, oh, that's a mistrial. It's like if you ever play cards among friends and the dealer screws up and everyone says, oh, mistrial. And you'll have 3 aces in your hand when someone tries to declare a mistrial. You're like ready to kill the dealer for making a mistake. But you don't have to say, well, no, we can fix this. Just do this and do that. We'll fix it. It's not a mistrial. I shouldn't be comparing playing cards to a trial like this, but there are people that always want to, take the easy way out. Dragonfly Lady, I didn't like it when the defense lawyer called Jorge Torres a monster during his closing. I don't like it when the victim is put on trial, especially in this case. Dragonfly Lady, that's part of what being a defense attorney is, and they have the leeway to do things like that and to call the victim name like he did. I mean, it would have been up to the prosecution to object to it. I don't know if they did object to him calling names, but you didn't like it, and I respect that, but they were allowed to do that. Northwest, you may have 3 areas to file an appeal on. Highly unlikely appeals will be successful. I agree. Maui Smith, her lawyer said she thought she was the abused one. Yeah, I mean, Maui and everyone else, there was areas of this that you might think that is appealable. And, there's no doubt she's going to appeal at our expense, of course. The taxpayer will pay for the freight. And you always wonder if someone's paying for their own attorney, would they be so generously filing appeals on their behalf? Let me play this, the Sarah Boone sitting emotionless as the verdict comes in.
Thank you, sir.
She's sitting at the desk with
Madam
her
Clerk,
two
if you could
attorneys.
please publish the verdict.
In the Circuit Court of the Ninth Judicial Circuit in Orange County, Florida, case number 2020 CF 2603, the state of Florida versus Sarah Boone. Verdict. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of murder in the 2nd degree as charged in the information. So say bill dated at Orlando, Orange County, Florida, on this 25th day of October 2024. The form has been signed by the full person.
Madam Clerk, please poll our jury.
Juror seat number 1, is this your true and correct verdict?
Yes, it is.
Juror seat number 2, is this your true and correct verdict?
Yes, it is.
Juror seat number 3, is this your true and correct verdict? Juror seat number 4, is this your true and correct verdict?
Yes.
Juror seat number 5, is this your true and correct verdict?
Yes.
Juror seat number 6, is this your true and correct verdict?
Yes, ma'am.
Members of our jury, again, I want to thank you for your time, your sacrifice, and your attention in this matter. I know that we spent almost 2 weeks together, and it was not taken lightly, and I really appreciate the time and the effort and the sacrifice that you put into this case. I want to advise you now of your final instruction. Members, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to thank you for your time and your consideration in this case. I also wish to advise you of some very special privileges enjoyed by jurors. No juror can ever be required to talk about the discussions that occurred in the jury room except by court order. For many centuries, our society has relied upon juries for consideration of difficult cases. We have recognized for hundreds of years that a jury's deliberations, discussions, and votes should remain their private affair as long as they wish it. Therefore, the law gives you a unique privilege not to speak about the jury's work. Although you are at liberty to speak to anyone about your deliberations, you are also at liberty to refuse to speak to anyone. A request to discuss either your verdict or your deliberations may come from those who are simply curious, from those who might seek to find fault with you, from the media, from the attorneys, or elsewhere. It will be up to you to decide whether to preserve your privacy as a juror. With that, members of the jury, again, I thank you for your service. I'm going to ask you to return to the deliberation room. I'll be back there shortly with your jury certificates, and thank you. Ms. Boone, the jury has spoken in this matter and has found you guilty of murder in the second degree. The court adjudicates you guilty of murder in the second degree. As this is your first felony conviction, you are entitled to a pre-sentencing investigation by the Department of Corrections. Mr. Owens, are you seeking that in this case?
Yes.
Okay. State, I will order the Department of Corrections to prepare the pre-sentencing investigation. State, for the purposes of sentencing, do you anticipate eliciting any testimony from be it the victim's family?
2 or 3 victim impact statements, sir.
Okay. Mr. Owens, do you plan on presenting any evidence during the course of the sentencing hearing, sir?
Probably some testimony from Dr. Harper.
Okay. All right. How long do you think, State, that you would need?
You mean timing-wise, or are we thinking?
A quantum of time, sir. Yeah, well, normally it takes about 30 days or so. I'm confirming with Anita as to availability. I just want to know from your side of the ledger, how much time? Okay, 15 minutes. How much time do you think you're going to need to produce anything from your side of the ledger, sir? Mr. Owens.
I'd say 30 minutes.
Okay.
30 to 45.
So if we set this for an hour, that would be sufficient.
Pardon me.
Okay.
Stated.
Is that sufficient, Mr. Owens?
Yes.
Okay, all right, give me a moment.
Now they're talking about victim impact statements, and no doubt someone from Jorge Torres or George Torres, however you want to refer to him, as the court referred to him as George Torres, someone from his family, perhaps 2 members of his family, will testify on behalf of their family on how the murder of Jorge has affected them, how it's affected their lives. And at the same time, potentially Sarah Boone, I would think she'll probably talk too. She'll probably, she wanted this to be all about her. That's why I believe she took it to trial. She wanted her day in court, when the opposite was the smart thing to do, was to take the plea, take the manslaughter plea. You're not going to, it's not, the show will not be about you, but it's the smartest thing to do. So the prosecution, he said they're going to have some doctor come on. It's like, come on.
Yeah.
Is that, Mike, is there any chance of that could be a reason for an appeal, that they put this doctor on? They already had the trial. The trial's over. She was found guilty.
Yeah, I don't see how this is going to do any good. Look, she wanted her day in court. She got her day in court. Maybe she now, is regretting it. But I would imagine the judge set this for 1 hour. There's going to be probably two people reading impact statements. Probably maybe one of George's siblings, and maybe one of his children. And then she's going to have someone. I would imagine she would like to say something. Of course, she'll probably be given the chance to say something before the sentence is imposed. But she might want to speak for an extended period of time. But maybe not. But I think, just from what I've seen of her, I think she wants to have some sort of soliloquy, some monologue at the end, like a Hamlet kind of thing, like a Hamlet moment. We'll see. but it's not going to change anything. The judge is already going to have already decided what the sentence is going to be based on whatever discretion the law gives the judge for a murder case like this, where the person is a first-time convicted offender. She's not had like 4 other robbery, convictions in the past, but he's going to have everything pretty much 99.9999% nailed down that morning before the sentence is imposed.
Mike, from what I understand in Florida law, she has to be given a sentence of 22 and a half to life. In New York, it would be 25 to life. I don't know why it's 22 and a half in Florida, but that's what she's going to be sentenced to. There's no doubt. And I think that's the harshest sentence he can give her also. Could he give her a softer sentence than that? He can't on his own account say, I'm going to downgrade this to manslaughter first degree. Could the judge do that?
No, not at this late trial. It's already been decided. It's what they call res judicata. The decision has already been made. If he wishes to give her the minimum, he can give her the minimum allowed by law. He won't be able to, there's no special circumstances where there could possibly be an avenue for her to get something less than that. If it's 22 and a half, then she might, get 22 and a half. That might be it. Because remember, she is a first-time offender in this kind of respect. So she might get 22 and a half years. I don't know how much good time they would be able to get for parole, that sort of thing. But I'm 99% sure it's going to be 22 and a half to life. It's going to be the sentence. And so she'll do 22 and a half.
She's served nearly 5 years already. So she's got 17 and a half or close to 18 years. Because she's already served in jail. Now, folks, one of the different people always make this mistake. Jail is basically a holding pattern. You're not convicted. You serve time in jail awaiting trial, right? So she's already done, but that counts against your state prison sentence if, in fact, you get convicted. She got convicted. Now she doesn't go to jail. Now she is a ward of the state. In New York, they always say you're going upstate, because all the prisons are upstate New York. I don't know what they say in Florida. Oh, you're going to the orange groves, whatever they call it in Florida. But now you go to prison, because by law, once you're convicted of a felony, which says the law states a felony, you are eligible for more than 1 year in prison. So then you go to prison. So she's going to be sentenced most likely to 22 and a half to life. So she will serve that not in jail, but in prison. And that's where we frequently make mistakes on it. Folks, this is Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. If you like real crime, true crime from a police perspective, you're in the right place. And if you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up. Hit the like button. Share us with your friends, your family, extended family, people that live in your condo. Share us. And if you want to contribute to us financially, we have a Patreon with 4 different levels, and we also have a YouTube channel membership with 5 different levels, and we're growing day by day, and we appreciate all of our family members in the YouTube channel membership who support this show. It's very, very important that you guys do that. We really appreciate it. Nikki Bernard from the chat. I couldn't get over how prosecutor told her it was a good day, and she said yes because I lived. Pauline Buckles from Diamond Girl. There's a very large background check more to show her personality. Is she likely to be released sooner or never? P from the chat. She stuffed him in the suitcase in the bedroom and threw him down the stairs. The prosecution did a very measured, professional opening and closing. Rest in peace, Jorge. Thank you, jury and all staff. Yeah, absolutely. The jury did their job. The jury has spoken, right? Gary Toussaint. I'm surprised that the prosecution didn't poke on Sarah, saying that she finally got this while she was filming George in the box. They wouldn't do that. Stacy M from the chat. Those jurors did well. I'm so relieved they saw through her and the irony of her claim. She's so weird to deny how drunk she continually got. She's shocked she recorded her murder, but zero remorse. Isn't that a fact? And that'll have an effect on the judge that she had zero remorse in regards to the sentence he doles out. Scott Messersmith, Cordelia, yes, pressed charges on sister-in-law, was released next day. I was stuck at the house taking care of kids while they spent time in jail. I'm not sure what you're referring to there. Let me bring Mike Geary back. I forgot he was even off the screen. He's sitting in a room all by himself. Let me go back to this and we'll finish this up. So the bottom line is, and we'll show it again later, the video that she took and showed everyone, that is what got her convicted. And we said that from minute one, this is going to be her downfall. You cannot unwatch that. As we say, you cannot unsee something. You cannot unwatch that video. And that in itself, the video she took, and also the police interview, where, of course, they tried to get that thrown out, and the judge ruled against that.
Ms. Barrios is checking. Just give us a moment.
So the judges, let me just move this up.
For 1:30 in the afternoon for sentencing on December 2. State, is that acceptable? It's a Monday.
I just hear, but I'll make it work.
I can move it to later if necessary.
Co-counsel.
Okay. Defense. Yes, sir.
That's Monday, December 2 at 1:30.
Yes, sir.
I can be here.
Ma'am, you've been adjudicated guilty. I now remand you into the custody of the Orange County Jail pending sentencing on December 2 at 1:30. State, anything else we need to address?
Nothing to say.
Defense. All right. Thank you very much. We're off the record.
Wow. So, would love to have seen Sarah Boone's face. It seemed like a lot of people are saying in the chat, she seemed very unemotional about it, almost like, yeah, I was aware this could happen. I'm going to file an appeal. I mean, this has been about her now for nearly 5 years that, she went through 8 defense attorneys. This was her 9th, This case clearly was about her. This was her day in court. This was her time to shine. And the fact, Mike, that she testified, to me, that was crazy too.
She put herself into a box because she had that videotape that she forgot from her phone. She probably forgot it was there. And when she turned her phone over to the Orange County sheriffs, they saw that. I think she totally forgot about it. And then she's talking in the interview about how much she loved him and how she was trying to control his self-destructive tendencies to drink and how she never drinks and she doesn't take a drop. And, and you're sitting there looking at that. And if it wasn't for that video, maybe there's some doubt, reasonable doubt. But that video shows the true Sarah. How do you act when someone is watching you compared to, when somebody's talking to you, you're in public and people are taking in what you're saying. And then compare that to how do you act in your private moments when nobody's watching you. While she was drunk, she took a video of her boyfriend begging for his life. And she was getting off on it. She thought that was something that made her feel good, that she was getting back at him, showing who's boss. And you take a look at that juxtaposition between that video where that's her true nature when the alcohol is in her, is running through her veins. And then you see how she is when she's sober and trying to explain how much she loves him. That just sunk her because it just doesn't seem to, it seems very, irreconcilable. And there's a huge disconnect there. And, but she had to, I think, because she wanted to claim so badly the battered spouse syndrome. When you put forward an affirmative defense like self-defense based on a battered spouse syndrome, you really do have to get up on that stand. It's really difficult because you have to try to convince the jurors, stand in my shoes and view what I viewed on that particular night. And what I did was reasonable because I was facing some sort of mortal danger, some sort of real danger. And it's really difficult to do. And that video, that sank her. You're right. That was it. She had to testify, but the jury's looking at her going, I'm looking at the video and I'm looking at her here, and it doesn't seem to make any sense.
Mike, the police off the cuff community, believe it or not, I mean, I've said this before. I think we have 83%, sometimes as high as 85% females are our audience. And I think it's just because you and I are just so sexy, we draw. I don't think that's the reason. But anyway, there's so many people in our audience that have been victims of domestic violence.
Right.
That have been in bad relationships like this, that have come forward, and I praise them because I really feel their pain and that they've suffered through this, and they come forward and try to share their experiences. But not a single one of them in the chat or today or on other days have said that I believe the battered woman syndrome for Sarah Boone, and I believe that that's why she did what she did. Not a single one of them.
That's telling.
Yeah, it's tremendously telling. And I want to thank you, ladies, for the ones that and not just the ones that have had DV, the ones you're a woman and you understand this stuff from the perspective of a woman, and have offered your comments about this. And she is a narcissist, and I can't say more that she wanted her day in court more than she wanted, to use her common sense. From the chat, Ellie Minnow, Nikki Bernard, I agree, but I think that the biggest reason she wouldn't take the plea is that she'd have to admit guilt.
Yes.
And she's not the victim she desperately wants to be. Ellie Minnow, great point. Excellent point. I think you may have hit on something there. You may be totally correct. Heather from the chat, complete antithesis of how she behaved in those videos, shaking my head so sad. That's often how an abuser will make themselves look different to the outside world. Right. You guys have some great comments on this. Catherine Sealer, right, she couldn't even admit she's an alcoholic. Well, that is a problem with most alcoholics, to admit that they, in fact, do have a problem. Ellie Minnow again, she was exactly like my abusive narc stepmom and my abusive narc ex. I see right through these people now. Good for you, Ellie Minnow. Court, she wanted her day in court more than she wanted her freedom. That's for sure. The Wizard of Ego from the chat, she tortured him. She took pleasure. She was a sadist. You guys have some. I'm going to play, of course, this was the grand slam home run in this whole case. And this is the video of her calling out to her. The suitcase is on the screen. We see that little suitcase.
For everything you've done to me. For everything you've done to me. Fuck you. Fuck you. Stupid. That's my name. Don't wear it on. I can't fucking breathe, babe. Seriously. Yeah, that's when you do when you choke me. Sarah. Sarah, I can't breathe, babe. That's on you. Sarah, I can't breathe. It's on you. Sarah. Real ransom. Might want to give it for it extra. Because I got this. Sarah. Real ransom. Sarah, I can't breathe, babe. Oh. That's what I feel like when you jingle me. Sarah. I you. Please, Sarah. Yeah. You should probably shut the book up.
For the record, that was img_1062.mot.
So that is, to me, and I don't want to oversimplify it or undersimplify it. To me, that was the case there. That you cannot unsee that or unlisten to it. And I guarantee you the judge in his sentencing is going to refer to that video. That what kind of a monster are you that can listen to another human being who you purportedly love begging for their life and they can't breathe, and you drunkenly walk away and go to sleep and leave them in a suitcase for 11 hours? What type of you're not a human being. That act was a savage act that you did that. Do you even have remorse now? It doesn't matter because you're going to prison. But I think the judge is going to cite that video as the reasons, and someone in the chat corrected me. I think he's going to give him more than 22 and a half to life. I think whatever the parameters of the law, he may say, I'm going to sentence you to more than the recommended minimum. I'm going to give you 25 to life or 30 to life. I don't know if he can do that. I think he can give a 25 to life, but because you showed just no sign of human feelings. And this man you purportedly loved, who you let him suffocate to death while being in a confined box. And as some people say, when I said this, the threat of him getting out really wasn't a threat because she could have called 911. But guess what? She didn't want to do that because probably both of them would have got arrested again. Because that's what two drunken people that have a domestic violence history, the police would have went there. They would have saved his life. But both of them would have been put in handcuffs. Both of them. Because you cannot explain the game of hide and seek where you put a human being inside a suitcase and zip it up. And then as he's reaching his hand out to get out, you hit him with a baseball bat. And then push it down the stairs. Hit the suitcase with a baseball. I mean, yeah. I think if I was sitting in those black robes and I was the judge, I think I would say, I'm going to sentence you to more than the recommended minimum, because this was an act of just beyond savagery in my mind, because you let this man die practically in front of your face. Not even in front of your face because you were a coward. You left and went to sleep. You passed out. Not even sleep. You passed out because you were so drunk that you didn't even stay there. And your words are adding years to your sentence, the words that you said. Mike.
Yeah, Bill, I was looking at the chat, and people have used the word torturous a couple of times, and I agree 100%. We only have her word that this started out as a game, and that it was all just fun and that sort of thing, and it just turned bad. It's likely that it started on the second floor with the suitcase being there, tumbling down the stairs, and we get to the bottom of the stairs. She hit him. So you got the staircase, you got him in the suitcase, going down the staircase, you got him in the suitcase, you got her hitting him. If he got his finger out of the suitcase, maybe he did, maybe he didn't. But that's torturous. And then he's not laughing like, hey, honey, this is funny. It's kind of warm in here, that sort of thing. It's kind of warm. I'm kind of confined. I'm a little claustrophobic. No, he actually told her, I can't breathe. And I don't care how drunk you are. That's on you, because at that point she's on notice. So it goes from a possible manslaughter, reckless manslaughter kind of situation to an intentional, torturous situation. Too bad she fell asleep. That's just the way it goes. And he died for it. He paid for that with his life. And so therefore she's now going to forfeit a good chunk of change. And I think you're right. If he can give her more than the minimum, because remember, like you say, like you reminded everybody, she's already done maybe 5 years. If he gives her a 22 and a half to life, she may be possibly eligible for parole after like 16 years. If I'm the Torres family, I'm very upset about that. He may go for like a 30 to life if he's allowed to, depending on what the parameters are for a first-time offender. But she's looking for a good stay, a well-deserved stay in prison.
Yeah, I mean, it's anyone that watches this. From the chat, P, I'm a survivor, and Jorge was a victim. My ex was everyone's friend, and closed the door, then switched. I was trapped. Don't ask why women stay, please, as it's shaming. Look, there's a whole psychological reason why victims are victims, and there's many reasons, and we're not going to go into it on this show. And we're certainly not trying to victim shame anyone, but we wonder that lots of times too, as the police that respond to these domestic violence incidents, and we see victims who have been beaten, victims who have been abused, victims who have been mentally, psychologically, physically abused. And yes, it occurs to us as, why do you stay? And we know the system doesn't provide an alternative that is a panacea for this, but it's better. The whole criminal justice system, if it any consolation, it's better now than it was years ago. And that's no consolation really to people that are abused. But in the last, I'd say 20, 25 years, there's almost like when the police respond to a domestic violence incident, there's practically like a must arrest almost every time. And when the police respond, like myself, I could speak for myself, and Mike will probably tell you the same thing. He was a sergeant. You felt much better putting one person or two people in handcuffs and having the system deal with them than saying, okay, listen, I'm not going to arrest anyone, but you guys behave, blah, blah. You can't trust that. So you walk away and one of them kills the other one. Who was the last person there? Oh, Sergeant Cannon was he responded there at 9 p.m. And what did he do? Oh, he warned and admonished, and he advised them and gave them a referral of going to family court. And then the husband stuck a knife in the wife's chest. No, thank you. That never, ever happened to me. And obviously it never will because I'm retired. But I erred on the side of locking someone up, and maybe both of them. If that protected the life of one of them, and the parameters to do that weren't that wide. And as I said, I would err on the side of putting someone in handcuffs. Mike, your thoughts?
Billy, I agree. I remember talking to a sergeant in years early when I was a patrolman, and he just asked me, he goes, what percentage of domestic violence cases end with at least even a complaint report? And I said, maybe 10%. He goes, yeah, it's about it. And then you start to think about it. Yeah, nobody even bothered even making a complaint report. And then years later, when I was a sergeant in Manhattan, in my precinct, I'm not going to say precinct, but one of the cops said that's what happened. He went to a job with a family, and they didn't make the arrest. And then an hour and a half later, the husband killed the wife. And so he goes to prison. She's dead, and the cop loses his job. And and it was horrible. So I think New York City erred on the side of safety, starting I think back in the early '90s or something like that. And I think that's a good way to go. Even in here in Winter Haven, Florida, with Jorge and George and Sarah, even with that sort of must arrest kind of situation, and they had been both arrested at least once before, it's still difficult because of the intra-family dynamics between the boyfriend and the girlfriend and the husband and wife. But at least it's what the municipality, what the state can do to try to stop this stuff from happening, further violence, because we have seen that in some cases it does seem to lower the level of violence when people know, no, you can actually get arrested by the police.
Mike, look at sorry to interrupt you, but
no.
Look at the Gabby Petito case.
Right.
the police responded to that. And if you guys don't remember that case, it was the young girl from Long Island. Her and her boyfriend went to Moab and what was that, Montana, Utah.
Yeah.
And there was an ongoing domestic violence issue. And the police responded and they mediated. They mediated it. And they were, I think one of them may have even been fired for it. And like, you don't have a crystal ball, but they mediated that situation. What happened? The boyfriend, right? The laundry,
Brian Laundrie.
that was the family, Brian Laundrie, he killed her. He strangled her, right? Now, many of you came out and said, those cops did a horrible job. And we watched it and we critiqued it. And I didn't think that the police did a horrible job. I thought they spent a lot of time on the scene trying to mediate that. The only thing they could have done that perhaps, and you don't know, you don't have a crystal ball, they would have had to have locked up both of them. But you know what? Gabby Petito was the primary aggressor. What if they would have locked her up? Would that have stopped her from being murdered by Brian Laundrie? So the only proper thing to do, from the opinion of many, and perhaps the courts too, the police should have arrested both of them. Would that have prevented Gabby Petito's murder? They would have went. They may have been stayed overnight in jail, and they would have both been released the next day. And what were they going to do? Give an order of protection against two people that were traveling the country in a camper?
Right.
You can't cross the line of the camper, like to his side, because then you violated the order. I've seen order of protections written like that. Oh, you can't touch the TV remote because that's obviously crazy things like that. Some judges will write. But many of you guys, and I'm not criticizing you, but have seen that Gabby Petito case and said, oh, the police should have arrested him. Well, if you know the case, she was the primary aggressor, but she wound up getting murdered. Very complex, Mike.
Yeah, this is the problem. You can't save people from themselves. And as a responding officer, you're parachuting into their emergency, and they've had an ongoing relationship. It's really, and you can't predict the future. I think they were separated for 24 hours. I think she stayed at a hotel and he might have stayed at a different place. But they were going to, no matter what, they were going to continue on their trip across the United States back towards Florida. I think she was actually killed about 6 or 8 days afterwards, after this case, after that video of them in Moab had been dealing with the police. So there was about a week later that he actually killed her. You can't predict this sort of thing. I agree with you. It's so difficult for the police to actually be effective because of the continuing relationships that people have. And I've seen many people violate their own orders of protection. You've seen it too. And it makes it really hard because it's human emotion and it's human, getting together in a family situation. Nobody wants to break that up. They want the other person to change, but they may not really want to break up that familial relationship and that residency that they've established and that family that they've established. And that really, really makes it difficult for the police because, there's only so much they could do. And usually it's arrest. And that doesn't really solve a lot. Sometimes it does, but a lot of times it doesn't. And that's the sad part about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let me play a little bit of the defense's final remarks.
And you were the only ones in this case, because Sarah Bing was arrested, that's going to be able to look at it critically and objectively. I like the state attorney.
Objection. Argument.
Overruled.
Objectively. And the law in Florida gives y'all the power and authority to do that. The state attorney can't make the decision. They can't make the decision. They can try to influence you. And we're going to talk about some of the things they did here in this trial. And some of the things they said.
Objection. Objection. Motion.
Yes.
So, look, the defense was, the defense that they raised, of course, the battered woman syndrome, she wasn't a spouse. She was in the relationship. Obviously, the jury didn't go for it. And we keep pointing back to the fact that the most powerful thing was the video of Jorge Torres in that suitcase. And that was it. Could the case have just ended right there? Show that suitcase? No, but she got a robust, well-represented defense from her attorneys. So the chance for appeal? I don't know. What do you think, Mike?
I don't think so. I don't think there's any grounds for an appeal at this time at all. The defense attorney is just saying things in the best light for his client, Sarah Boone. Remember, he was able to show large pictures, really like humongous poster-sized pictures to the jury of Sarah Boone with like a blackened eye and a swollen face and that sort of thing. So there's no way that she was not able to present her defense fully and fairly to the jury. They got to see a number of pictures, and I think there was even the video of George smashing the television set while she calmly videotaped it. He hit it with a baseball bat. She got to present her defense. She was not disallowed. She got to present everything, so therefore she got a full and fair hearing. And the jury, looked at that, but I think you're absolutely right. Those still pictures did not carry the weight of persuasion to a jury that video did. That video of him sitting, inside that tiny little suitcase, begging for his life. So she got a fair trial. She did, and he did the best he could for her as a defense attorney. But the ladies in the jury and the men in the jury, after only about 90 minutes, not even 2 hours, they came back with a verdict. I think it was pretty convincing that this was murder too. There was, it wasn't like this went on for 3 days and they're going back and forth between the jurors trying to figure out, is there a compromise? What could we come up with? No, this was 90 minutes to 2 hours. And they decided probably after the first one or two votes that this was actually murder second degree.
Absolutely. Folks, again, if you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, hit the like button. How about Sarah Boone testifying? Let's listen to a little bit. She came across, I think, very matter of fact and cold, to tell you the truth.
How long did y'all date before you married?
A good handful of years. I helped my family with paying mortgage and bills for the house since my father had passed away and my grandfather. So
you worked outside the home?
I did.
Okay. Can you tell the jury when you said you and Brian Boone dated for a while? Do you remember when y'all married?
I do.
Could you tell the jury when y'all were married?
The year?
Yeah.
You
remember the date?
It happened to be, yes, that after my mother passed away, that he had waited to ask me to.
Do you see also, she obviously was coached on this testimony. She's mentioning all the family deaths she had. What does that have to do with what the crime you committed? Everyone has deaths in their family. Is that going to be something that, and obviously that's why I think she was coached on what to say, because, let the jury know what a horrible and difficult life you had, and that was a little bit of a stretch.
Marry him because he knew it would be,
Sustained. Just answer the question if you can, Ms. Boone. Are you a little bit nervous?
A little bit.
Okay. Well, just tell the jury if you remember the date that you and Brian Boone married.
August 21st, 2004.
Okay. And had y'all lived with each other for a short time before that?
Short time.
Yes. Okay. After you married, how long was it before y'all had any children?
6 years.
Okay. And y'all have one son.
Yes.
What's his name?
Lucas.
And how old is Lucas now?
Lucas will be 14 years old on the 28th.
28th of this month?
Yes.
Okay. So you and Brian were married, and y'all lived in Orange County. How long were y'all married?
13 years.
Right, and y'all divorced?
Yes.
And as part of the divorce, were y'all to share custody of your son?
Yes.
And so y'all would split days, would that be fair to say?
Yes.
At some time after you and Brian split up, did you meet George Torres?
Yes.
All right, could you tell the jury how you met George Torres?
I met George when I decided to buck up, I guess, and was tired of trying to patch things up with my ex-husband. And I decided to go one day for a walk across the street and go have a beer by myself and sit and people watch just to get out of my house and a change of scenery.
All right, now is this your apartment?
No, this is the marital home.
Okay. Where is that marital home?
Winter Park?
You're no longer living in that marital home?
No.
Who lives in the marital home?
No one. It has been sold.
Okay. So you met George Torres before you got the apartment?
Yes.
Okay. And you met him at a bar across the street from the marital home?
Yes, we had a mutual friend there.
Were you introduced?
Yes.
All right. How did you and George get along when y'all first met?
Very well. It was strange how quickly we hit things off and had so much in common, and I never thought that he would be interested in someone like me, and I just couldn't believe that he was actually interested in me and said a lot of nice things, and 1 hour ended up being 4 hours from when we had first met, and then we would always have something to talk about.
Why couldn't you believe that he would be interested in you?
He was very handsome. He was very funny. He was smart, and I would show up in workout clothes and disheveled hair, and I guess I kind of felt broken from being in the process of a divorce that he knew about. But then one of the things that we could relate also was the fact that he was here in Florida because he had just been divorced from his second wife. So that was another topic that he and I could compare notes on.
So eventually the divorce was settled. Did you get your own place?
Yeah.
Is it fair to say that after at first you lived in your parents' home, correct?
Yes, until I was married.
And then you moved directly in with Brian?
Yes.
And then y'all lived in the marital home, correct?
Yes.
And then you got this apartment.
Yes.
So that was the first time in your life that you actually had your own place.
Yes.
And what was the address?
4748 France Court, apartment number 3.
And what city is that in?
It's in Winter Park.
How far is that from here?
20 minutes.
Okay. So you got that apartment, and initially were you by yourself?
No.
All right, tell the jury.
In the almost year, about 10 months of separation from Brian, my ex-husband, that is the time when I met George. And my ex-husband was trying to buy me out or force me out of our marital home, and I needed to find somewhere to live. And
so did you and George agree to rent the apartment?
yes, I needed extra income. We could not afford it just on my own.
You were receiving some income from the marriage settlement, were you not?
Yes.
So you did have a consistent monthly income coming in from the marriage settlement?
For the most part, yes.
But you needed more to live.
Yes, to pay the bills and for rent.
So did you and George have some agreement?
We did.
All right, what was the agreement?
The agreement was that if I decided for he and I to live with one another, because it would be under my name, that he would help with the monthly bills and on a regular basis where it wouldn't be something that I would have to argue with him about. It would just be an automatic, make sure that everything's paid first, and then from there, hopefully have some fun with it.
Okay. So I understand from that point on, would it be fair to say that y'all saw each other on and off for about the next 3.5 years?
No, I would consider us a couple. At some point, he asked me to marry him.
Okay. But y'all did have times where he left and went to live with his parents.
Yes.
Is that fair?
Yes.
And there were times where there was an understanding that y'all were going to break up.
Multiple times.
Okay. All right. So, again, on again, off again.
Yes. This was actually before we had our apartment. That was, I guess, our dating phase.
Okay. So y'all were together for 3.5 years. Is that fair?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And y'all had actually agreed to marry?
He had asked me, yes, a couple of times to marry him, and one time I agreed to yes.
Okay.
So I think, one of the reasons I'm showing this is that did this help or hurt her cause? And my opinion is it hurt her cause because people got to see who she is and how she's cold and calculating. And, a lot of people in the chat said she puts on that little baby voice, that little victim voice.
Right.
It's just like, with the Stefan Stern's voice, I'm not a morning person. Like he puts on that, and she puts on a voice too when she's testifying. And I think testifying, as you know, Mike, as an attorney, usually it's a Hail Mary pass, and it's usually a very bad decision. And I mean, look, to me, in this case, I almost feel like it didn't matter because no matter what she did in this case, that video was the strongest piece of evidence against her. And I believe she would have got convicted no matter what. Your thoughts?
Bill, yeah, she is in her testimony. She's talking about meeting George at a bar. 1 hour turned into 4 hours. Renting the apartment. Getting, he and she breaking up. They thought they were a couple. He asked her to marry him a couple of times. She said yes one point. I'm just wondering, how much of this was, all of these conversations occurred when they were sober or, where they're both intoxicated. It shows that there's a real instability in that relationship before they even moved in together. And after they moved in together, then the police started getting called and they were arrested. So it didn't help her in the least. And probably that voice, I saw that in the chat too. I'm like, you know what? People, in that voice, in that video, when she has him in the suitcase and she's filming it, and her voice is slurred, and she's saying, and she's cursing him, and he's saying, please, Sarah, that sort of thing. And here she is testifying. She's very even, unemotional. She smirked a couple of times. The rapid eye blinking. It seemed, it was very, very canned. I'm sure absolutely she and the defense attorney rehearsed what the questions were going to be and what the responses were going to be. And she just spitting out the responses with really no inflection whatsoever. I just don't, she had to get up on the witness stand because of her defense, but she did not do herself any favors with that presentation at all.
You're right. Andy the Gabby Cabby. It was almost like she was reciting a script, no emotion and not convincing. This verdict doesn't surprise me. Andy, you're preaching to the choir, but thank you for preaching to us. This didn't sway anyone either. And this was a picture of him destroying their TV with a baseball bat. Jorge Torres destroying their TV, swinging, 5, 6, 7 times. I mean, I think that's disturbing, but it didn't convince the jury of anything. I think it sort of just convinces the jury what a dysfunctional, what a dysfunctional
Yeah.
relationship they have. I don't think him swinging the baseball bat at the screen. I mean, I guess that would, to me, if I was a juror, I would say, yeah, these two, they don't belong together.
Right.
Breaking a TV with a baseball bat is not standard operating procedure in any relationship, any marriage, anywhere.
Yeah.
But then in the whole analysis, in the final analysis, okay, he broke a TV with a baseball bat. You hit him with a baseball bat while he was locked inside a suitcase. I think an inanimate object getting destroyed with a baseball bat is bad, but a human being being hit with a baseball bat while locked inside a suitcase is much worse. So, defense attorney, nah, it didn't help, Mike.
Billy, it would have helped the defense a lot more if she was on the video pleading with him, saying, stop breaking the television. That's our television. We just bought that. That thing costs like, $500 or $600, whatever it happens to be. And him pointing at her and saying, don't stop me or I'm going to hit you. There was nothing like that to show that she was not acquiescing to this. There was no context for it. He didn't look at her and say, I'm going to hurt you. This is mine. I hate you. Nothing. She was just filming it. So I don't know what time it was. I don't know what the time stamp was or the date stamp, but I'm sure that there might have been a little alcohol going on at this time. Maybe it was a broken TV and they were just fooling around. But it just seems like you're right. Like they don't belong together. And the two of them, in a weird way, they kind of deserved each other because they were dysfunctional. There was dysfunction going on both sides of the aisle. It wasn't completely she's the victim and he's the aggressor. Here, they're just doing really odd things. You're right. And I bet you the jury had the exact same reaction you had. Like, these people have a really messed up relationship. Yeah.
You think so?
Yeah.
I was like, in my warped sense of humor way, when she was describing her relationship, we met one day at a bar and we were there for about 4 hours. If I was the prosecution, I was like, what was the bar bill after those 4 hours?
Right.
How many pitchers of beer did you drink during those 4 hours? And is that what your relationship was? The foundation was you guys just drinking till you were so stupidly drunk, oh yes, we just had the most wonderful relationship. I was trying to deal with it. I took a walk right into the local bar, right? That's not a walk. That's going to a destination. Going to a walk is walking through the woods, walking through a park, walking along somewhere so you can get your thoughts together, not walking into a bar stool and then staying there for 4 hours with George, and that we just fell in love. That to me, I didn't buy a single bit of that either. Let me just play a little bit of this of some other moments on the stand.
We're joking about how he was, small enough to fit inside of the suitcase.
Were you trying to kill him?
Never.
Did you want to kill him?
I did not.
Did you do anything to help him escape from the predicament that you zipped him up in?
No.
They were just playing hide and seek. It was all fun and games until it wasn't. Alleged suitcase killer Sarah Boone took the stand Tuesday to tell jurors what she says happened the night she reportedly zipped her boyfriend into a suitcase and left him there to die. Boone testified it was all just a joke, so how did things take such a horrific turn? We're going to take a look back at the top moments from Sarah Boone's testimony. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime.
So there was no fun and games. There was nothing funny about anything that they did. It's sort of a sad situation because they're both alcoholics, and I don't know. I could be wrong, but I don't think that's a good precursor to start a relationship where two alcoholics meet each other, and the biggest thing they have in common in their relationship is getting blind drunk. Your thoughts, Mike?
Billy, it was a self-destructive relationship for the two of them. Maybe in some ways she would want to help him, but I think she probably herself needed so much help with alcohol. It would have been better had they both gone to AA and really try to do it properly. But this is what it all led to: is a totally uneven kind of existence where they're calling the police, they're fighting, they get back together again, they call the police, they fight, they get back together again. And it's sooner or later, something bad's going to happen. There's so much instability, and they probably had a lot of monetary problems. She referred to that in her testimony, her direct testimony about the financial woes. But it was so unstable and so I guess the best word I could have is unstable and self-destructive. And something was going to end tragically. It was going to be bad. There was going to be something going on, and this is it. Maybe she got him in the suitcase for fun, but maybe the alcohol took over, and suddenly she remembered all of the reasons why he made her cry, and she wanted to give it to him right back. And there's where we end up with that video with him on that floor, begging for his life. And now she's in prison probably for in the next 2 or 3 decades. And so sad, but that was the path that relationship was on from the get-go. It was not a stable, self-nurturing relationship. It was really self-destructive.
It's not that it's at all funny, because it's not funny, but when you put together a lot of bad factors, a lot of bad things in a relationship. 1, you're both alcoholics. 2, neither one of you has a job.
Right.
3, you have financial problems. Why do you think you have financial problems? Well, we're both alcoholics and neither of us have a job. Was that difficult to figure out? I know I'm oversimplifying it, because people will say alcoholism is a disease. Yeah, but something? It's very easy to see where the derivation of their problems were. And it was A, alcohol, and B, they were both unemployed. So what, and it makes the situation worse when you're an alcoholic and you don't have any money. And it just exacerbates the whole thing. And they're like, she points to her ex-husband. No, he's not the one that has the problem. He works. He's taking care of your son. He's competent. You're the problem. But she's trying to sell this to the jury that, oh no, my husband wouldn't, he wanted to take the marital home. Well, yeah, because he's the one that pays for it, and then I don't know. Perhaps I'm overly simplifying it, but it doesn't seem that complicated. The other thing I wanted to mention was the quickness that the jury came to a verdict tells the whole story, Mike. It was less than 2 hours, I believe, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So that tells a lot of the story, because if the case was really complicated, the jury would have sequestered over the weekend. They wouldn't have come to a verdict in less than 2 hours. So it wasn't that difficult. The decision to find Sarah Boone guilty of murder second degree was not very difficult. And there was only 6 jurors. 6 jurors. And 8 alternates, because maybe they smelled a rat to that too. Oh, someone's going to protest against this juror or that juror. Let's make sure we have a sufficient number of backups that will also can vote on this case if necessary. So yeah, so quick to come to a verdict. So quick.
Did he see you?
Yes.
All right. Tell us what happened.
I zipped him up. We thought it was funny. And we're joking about how he was, small enough to fit inside of the suitcase.
All right. So what happened then?
From there, it was just, we were laughing about it. And it was just strange that he was small enough to fit in there. And then I kind of moved it around a little bit with him in the suitcase still. It was still funny that he was still in the suitcase, just I think he and I were just kind of couldn't believe that he could fit in the suitcase.
Did you eventually close the top?
Yes, in order for, well, the top was already closed. As he was settling himself in there, that's how I knew he was in there, was because the top was kind of flopping a little bit.
So he had gotten in there to hide, and he pulled the top
Yes,
on top of him. But you could tell he was in.
yes,
You saw him right away.
yes,
All right. So at some point, did you zip him up? Did
yes.
you? And what was he saying or doing when you were zipping him up?
Just thought it was funny.
Well, you both laughed.
Yes.
And so you zipped him up. Were y'all still laughing once you zipped him up?
Yes.
So again, according to Sarah Boone, this was one big joke.
This was all fun and games until someone loses an eye. That's what they used to say when we were kids, right?
Right.
It was all fun and games till someone lost an eye, and there was nothing funny about this. There was nothing that was a game about this. This was a horror show, and when someone's that drunk, also, I mean, obviously, when you're drunk, your decision making is not very. It's not very good, to put it mildly, right? Your decision making is very poor, and her decision making was that this was somehow fun and games. It was really funny. And then the worst decision she made was to leave him there and go and pass out for 11 and a half hours. And I don't buy the whole bullshit about the CPR. I guarantee you she has no clue on how to perform CPR, that she performed CPR. I think at that time he was purple. His color was purple. So you really performed CPR on a purple person that was obviously dead. You performed CPR. I mean, it's preposterous that she performed CPR. And again, the jury didn't go for it.
All right, well, I understand that. Yeah, I understand that. But would it be fair to say that you had some anger at that point?
I did.
Would it be fair to say that you wanted to tell him off to some degree?
I just wanted, yes, for him to have a better understanding, which was the whole point of the videos and documentation prior.
And you could tell that he was uncomfortable.
I'm guessing.
And
I'm guessing.
Did you want him to feel some uncomfort?
I did.
Okay.
So, in other words, she's telling the jury that
So, everything that she's admitting to really being a mean person, creating this situation. She wanted him to be uncomfortable. So if you wanted him to be uncomfortable, did you mean to kill him? I would naturally go right to that. And of course, she's going to, if she's questioned by her defense attorney, oh no, I had no concept that could happen. You had no idea if you locked a human being inside a suitcase, tortured him basically, hit him with a baseball bat, and then passed out drunk, that you had no concept. Intend death, cause death, recklessly cause death, criminally negligently cause death, knowingly cause death. What is it, Mike?
Yeah, Billy, once he says, Sarah, I can't breathe, at that point, that is, you go further than that and you don't let him out of that suitcase. That at that point looks to me like you're intending to cause death. No matter what you thought 5 minutes earlier, once that person tells you, I can't breathe, Sarah, really, I can't breathe, and you don't release him, I'm sorry, that's intentional homicide. And the thing, remember too, about this case is everything she says about how all the fun and games, there's no objective evidence that they had a lot of that. Other than the fact that they were drunk because they found the wine bottles, there's no objective evidence that Jorge thought and George thought any of this was fun and games. Do we even know that he got into that suitcase willingly? She says it. Do we know that it was fun and games? She said it. There's nobody that can say, oh, they were playing games. So the idea that she filmed a part of it when he's asking for help, saying, Sarah, please, begging for help. She filmed that, but there's no film of him being in that suitcase saying, Sarah, this has been great. I'm having a blast. This is really funny. Can you actually see me in here? You know, hey, oh, by the way, it's a little tight in here. Nothing. It's all the only video we have is her cursing him and telling him to go F himself when he's asking to, telling her he can't breathe and please, I need to get out of here. So the whole idea about this being fun and games and hide and seek, you know, I don't think maybe the jury didn't even believe any of that was just all made up in her head to try to justify what she did to him in that suitcase, you know, and that's sad. And I think the fact that they decided this jury reached a verdict in like not even 2 hours, maybe an hour and a half, goes to show that they didn't believe maybe a single thing that she even said.
Absolutely. Melanie Copeland from the chat. Woodbridge Farms wine for those mega pints they drank was like $10. You buy a bottle of Woodbridge Farms it's a liter, right? It's one of those big liters for $10. Real high. I'm going to go out and buy a bottle of real high quality wine, I'm sure. But that's when they said, oh, we drank 2 bottles of wine, it was 2-liter bottles, not 2-quart bottles. So they both weighed at the time, I think, less than 100 pounds. She was heavier in court. She supposedly weighed like 98 pounds. He weighed, I think, 101. He was 5'2", 101 pounds. So think of that amount of wine for someone that's that small. That's a lot of wine. Pam No Week at 1976. Sarah Boone was raped because of her drinking drunk. It then hang on men and one guy raped, but it was then blah, blah, blah. Well, she claimed that she was, right? Because through intoxication, she couldn't consent. Was that, I don't know that part of the case, but Michelle Battersby, 11 and a half hours. I think that, you know, the most important that I've said a million times again is this. This is the case right here.
That this video was her way to talk to George, to get him to listen to her. But also in that video, she can be heard seemingly mocking George and reminding him of times where she says he beat her up. Now, what is not on that video, she says, is George threatening to hurt her if he gets out of the suitcase.
It got very heated very quickly, and he continued to push on the suitcase. And my fear was that he was going to break out of the suitcase, knowing that it was a broken suitcase. And his hand started to come through. His hand started to come through this way. And so I shook the suitcase. Trying to get his hand to go back in, shaking it, and telling him that, please stop doing this. Please stop doing this to me. Please stop doing this to me.
So his hand actually got out of the suitcase.
Yes.
And you went to the suitcase.
Yes.
And shook it.
Yes.
Did that force his hand to go back in?
No.
So you're shaking it. Were you shaking it to try to get the suitcase, his hand back in?
Yes.
How long did you shake it?
I don't know.
But his hand was still out.
Yes.
Was he trying to get out?
Forcefully, yes.
Was he angry at you?
Yes.
Were you in fear?
Always.
If he would have gotten out of the suitcase, what would he have done to you?
Like he used to tell me, he probably would have made me unrecognizable, or I would have lost my life.
Okay, that testimony is key to Sarah Boone's defense. Remember, she's claiming self-defense, that her life was in imminent danger if George got out of that suitcase. And all of this fear stems from a history of alleged past abuse. So we're at the point where George is doing anything he can to get out of the suitcase, even sticking his hand through, but Boone claims she is deathly afraid and is not going to let him out.
For the split-second reaction that I had, I happened to see that, and I grabbed the baseball bat and was trying to poke his hand to go back in, to please don't break through, please. So I hit his hand.
And you said you poked him with it?
Yes, I kind of pushed I held it with the skinny part here and then
So the grip here,
brought it at it. Yes.
you grabbed it with both hands here,
Yes.
and then the barrel of the bat, the big part of the bat is here.
Correct.
And you thrusted it into the different areas of the suitcase?
I started with his hand, and his hand, he was still trying to get out. He was still trying to do that. So I started to push on the suitcase around it, hoping to have his hand retract and go back inside.
You made those injuries.
I did.
We've seen the photographs.
Yes.
We see the bruising. Is that from that bat?
Yes.
Eventually, did his hand go back inside from you doing?
Yes. Finally, he had subsided and retracted his hand.
So in your mind, did you prevent him from attacking you?
Absolutely.
Did you believe that he could breathe in there?
Yes.
Did you ever believe he could die in there?
No. At all.
Were you trying to kill him?
Never.
Did you want to kill him?
I did not.
Let's set the stage.
So that whole defense, Mike, is so unbelievable that it's almost laughable to listen to it. Like, she's afraid he's going to get out of the suitcase, so she pokes him with a baseball bat, pokes his hand because he was about to break out. No, there was no evidence of him about to break out of the suitcase that he was zipped up in, and you poking him with a baseball bat. That defense to me was absolutely ridiculous. It was so unbelievable that the jury would come back in less than 2 hours. That's how unbelievably stupid it was. Again, I don't want to, we expected this verdict. I think every single person in the chat expected this verdict. No one was surprised. I haven't seen one person in the chat or one person that's followed this case on any other channel that was sympathetic to Sarah Boone. Big mistake to take this case to trial. Huge mistake. And to me, if there's any appeal, that's where it's going to come from. She's going to try to say that her attorneys didn't convince her enough to take the plea. I think that's where the appeal is going to come from, because the judge bent over backwards, making sure there was no appealable part to this trial, but she'll blame it on her attorneys. I just want to say, folks, we said at the outset of the show, Duty Ron has he announced on his own show that he has 9/11 cancer, and it's a very specific type of cancer that he has. But I just want all you guys that are in the true crime community, all the guys that follow Police Off the Cuff, all the guys that follow Crime Time with Duty Ron, to say prayers for Duty Ron and to his family that he defeats this cancer. And he's a friend of mine, and we all want to just keep him in our prayers. That's all I'll say. Mike, your final thoughts, and then and a lot of folks, I see a lot of new folks in the chat. Just make sure you hit that subscribe button and give us a thumbs up. Mike, your final thoughts.
Final thoughts. I think we should all just think about Jorge Torres. He wasn't perfect, but he didn't deserve to have a death like this. This was cruel, really cruel. So we should always think about him. Don't spend even 1 cent of emotion on Sarah. She's going to get what she deserves. We should all think about that. He's the one who's the victim, and his parents, his siblings have lost a sibling. His children have lost their father, and and even Sarah's ex-husband Brian, he's now raising a child without her, and so therefore that child will grow up without really having a mother at all in their life. So what she did has hurt so many people. We should always remember Mr. Torres.
Very well said, Mike. Excellent breakdown of this. And again, I for you guys that weren't listening from the beginning, I would have loved to have come on when the verdict came down yesterday, but I was driving from New York to Florida. I'm in Florida right now, as you can see, with my white Police Off the Cuff banner behind me, It's a little different from the one up north, which is black and red. But I want to thank everyone for coming by today during this afternoon. I think this case, tragic, but some parts of it were fascinating to look at the way the case went for Sarah Boone. Again, she's 100% guilty, and the jury found her 100% guilty. December 2nd will be when she gets sentenced, and the judge will I predict will mete out a very severe sentence. So, folks, I'm Bill Cannon from Police Off the Cuff on behalf of myself and Professor Mike Geary. Thank you so much for coming by today. Have a great day, and God bless everyone.
One episode just ain't enough.